Okay, so we're going to start in a cross-legged shape, and we're going to do some really simple pranayama, as always. And for this pranayama, we've got Guy in the background, by the way, so if you hear any rustling and things, then that's him. So for this pranayama, if it feels comfy, if you ever take like a lotus or half lotus, that's where you take one of your feet on top of your thigh like this, or both. You can do that, but if you're doing that to kind of show off to yourself, then don't. If it doesn't feel good, then just come to a regular cross leg, and then decide if, oh, I tell you what, we're going to need a blanket today, and I can't remember if I wrote that. So before we get settled, maybe just grab a wee blanket. Joy, you might actually be, oh no, actually, if you have got a blanket, that'd be great. If you don't, it's totally fine. So I'll give you a wee moment to grab one. And don't worry if it's all kind of all over the shop, because we're going to roll it up into a sausage. Actually, let's not disrupt our class. Before we get started, roll your blanket into a sausage, because that's going to be worth it later, having a nice sausage shape. And you can just leave it by the side of your mat. We're going to play with a shape that we played with, was it Sunday night we did this, or last Wednesday? Can't remember. But those of you that were here when we had the sausage blanket, we're doing something similar again. Nice. Okay. So back to the beginning. Let's start in our cross-leg shape, whatever that looks like for you. And then let your hands rest just in your lap or on top of your feet, whatever feels better. Close your eyes. Let your shoulders roll down away from your ears. If you notice that you're kind of leaning forward at all or leaning backwards, maybe just shimmy around on your sit bones until you can get a nice tall seat. And just notice what your regular breath is doing. So how you breathe kind of naturally. Try really hard not to alter that too much right now. Just notice if you're in that frame of mind where your breath is short and staggered, or if it's doing the opposite of that, it's long and kind of pauses. I want you to think of your inhales and exhales like a pendulum swinging. So we're going to add a little more direction to the breath now. Try and create equal inhale and exhale length. And try and find that balance between kind of purposeful and easy, natural. Just like a pendulum, you know how it has that, it's almost slow the way that it swings, but you know that it's guided by gravity. This kind of fight between control and non-control. And you know how when a pendulum swings, it almost hovers at the top before it swings back down to the other side, and then it hovers at the bottom, or at the other side, I should say. So think of your breath in that way. The inhales and the exhales are the swinging of the pendulum, but those little pauses that we have between the breath are when your pendulum hovers at either side. And just notice the natural pauses. You don't need to actively hold your breath. Let's take a handful more like this. Maybe you're going to lengthen out your breath, lengthening the string of your pendulum. And for the last few breaths, I want you to actively pause for a little longer at the end of your inhale and at the end of your exhale. Notice which pause seems easier. Is it the one at the end of the inhale where you're full of anticipation and your lungs are full? Or is it the pause at the end of your exhale where you're feeling calmer, slower? Okay, from here, open your eyes. And just take some time to breathe a kind of regular rhythm here. So if you're enjoying that pendulum swing, you can stay like that. But if you'd like to just come back to something a little less structured, then go for that. And if you're taking a lotus or half lotus shape, come into just a regular cross leg position, Sukhasana. Take your hands to your knees, and we're going to do kind of like a circular cat-cow shape here. We're going to explore what mobility we've got in our hips today. So it doesn't matter which way you go, and it doesn't matter if it feels a bit sticky, because it probably will. So start to just move yourself around your pelvis, using your hands to hold you in place. Don't fall backwards. I always think of that character in Noddy. I don't know if that's going to mean anything to anyone. Is it the policeman? I hope that reference resonates with someone. And then once you've rocked around in one direction, rock around in the other direction. Notice what your breath has decided to do here. You don't need to change it, just notice it. And then back in the other direction once more, but this time be a bit more exaggerated with your chest movement. So you're pushing your chest outwards and drawing it inwards as you roll around. And then the other direction. This is a really lovely, soothing thing to do if you've ever got cramps, kind of tummy cramps or PMS or anything like that. Okay, come to stillness. Just let your body come back. And from here, let's come into all fours. Tabletop. If you have clicky knees, you might want to place a cushion underneath your knees here. I'm definitely going to do that. So from your tabletop shape, make sure your hands are underneath your shoulders, your knees are under your hips, and your feet are hip width distance. So don't let the feet draw together, otherwise you'll feel less stable. And from here, extend your right leg out towards the right-hand side. And if you can, try and get the whole sole of your right foot on the floor. But if that's too much in the ankle, you can let it peel up. Readjust your left knee if needs be. And just tuck your left toes and gently rock forwards and backwards. We're doing just a touch of mobility stuff to start us off, because quite often hip classes can get quite intense if we don't link up the hips. So rocking forwards and backwards. And then once you're feeling comfortable with this movement, lift your gaze so that it's straight ahead of you, and you'll notice a wee switch in your spine, little back bend. Okay, take your right knee to your cushion or the floor and extend your left leg. Same again, you want your left foot in line roughly with your right knee. And then I'm gonna adjust this plant. Same again, tuck your right toes under and rock forwards and backwards. You don't need to go all the way back to the heel, it might just be a little motion. Nice. Be kind on your wrists here, they don't need to take much pressure. You can have a little bend in the elbows. Yep, good. Let's take another couple like this. Lifting your gaze if you've not done so already. Okay, and from here, take both your knees back to the mat or the cushion. Take them nice and wide, draw your toes to touch, sink your bum towards your heels and take a nice, juicy child's pose. You can either extend your arms here, bring them underneath your head, whatever feels more comfortable for you. And if the cushion's in the way, you can move it. Good job, everyone. Big breaths, breathing in through the back of your body. So if we were here for longer, I would suggest in your child's pose, I've been doing this a lot recently, taking a bolster or cushions underneath your body or something to hold on to. Let's take another 4 breaths. Okay, walk your hands towards your knees, take a little seat. And from here, roll onto your right hip, right bum cheek, and take your right foot to the inside of your left leg. Your left foot is going to draw back behind you. So see how that feels in your pelvis. If it's feeling a bit uncomfortable, tightness in your kind of groin or the hip creases, sit on either a bolster or cushion here, or your blanket, that little rolled up blanket, you can sit on that. And from here, sit yourself nice and tall. Try not to create a back bend if possible. This is called deer. And then crawl your hands around to the right hand side, maybe even taking your left hand to your right knee, or just taking the hands kind of either side of the pelvis and twist around to the right. Come back round through center, and anyone that's got cushions or bolsters handy, just grab that and place that in the space in front of your right foot. You can show off your shiny new bolster, Joy. Okay, now from here, start to lean forward, and you can either, it just depends how the mobility is in the hips. You can either kind of pancake down and lie right on top of your bolster, or you can use it to rest your forearms on. If you're feeling really quite tight in the hip, or if your left leg's not enjoying this, and you've got a bolster or a block, you can sit it up like this, and you can rest your head against it. Now, if either of your knees are really talking to you, you can make heaps of adjustments. You can place props or blocks underneath the knees, or you can extend the left leg. It's going to change the shape quite a lot, but it'll give you a bit of respite. You're feeling really comfortable in this shape, you can stay here. If you feel like your edge has kind of lost its spiciness and it's starting to feel a bit maybe dull in your hips, or if you need a change, we can turn this into pigeon. Pigeon is really loud on the hips though, so just be careful if you're feeling a bit tender there. So for those of you who know pigeon well, you can just transition as feels comfortable for you. For those of you who are kind of working on it or are unfamiliar, roll lightly over to the right hand side, then extend your left leg back behind you, and then roll back onto your belly so that the top of your left foot is on the ground. Now your right heel can be wherever feels comfortable for you. For some, it might feel quite nice placing the right heel right underneath the groin, or you can draw the right heel up in space so that you're pulling it maybe even towards, so that your right shin is even parallel-ish with the top of your mat. If things are feeling very tight in the right outer hip, then push your right knee out towards the right hand side. I'll come and have a little look to see our setups. Yeah, magic, everyone. Okay, let's start to bring ourselves out of this shape. Loads of ways to come out. You can either roll onto your right hip and then come to seated position. You can press yourself back to downward dog, or you can come into child's pose. Whatever feels like that's going to work in your body tonight. Nice. And those of you that are taking a seat, you can come back into that kind of swinging motion that we did at the beginning of class, just to check in. Those of you in down dog, you can pedal your feet. Make sure you've got all the blood back in your body. Nice, okay. From here, let's come into the same seat, but with our legs reversed. So our left foot is going to come to the inside of the right thigh. Right foot is going to draw towards our bum. Again, you can sit on something here to give you a bit of height. We'll take a wee moment just still, nice and tall. Check your back. Are you exaggerating the curve in your lumbar? If so, just zip your belly in. And then take a twist around towards the left-hand side. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It can just be a suggestion of a twist. Come back round through center. We're going to set ourselves up for that first fold. So if you moved your block or bolsters or whatever, you can grab them again. And be mindful, I say this every time we do hip stuff, but it's going to feel really different on this side. Might feel better, might feel worse, or stronger or weaker. That's just the case with hips. Start to lean forward. Maybe stay on your hands, maybe your forearms, or maybe you go all the way down to cuddle your bolster. And don't be shy about adding further props as well, or taking props away. Nice. And because we've stretched out our hips, it's had a little knock-on effect for our back. So you might find that you can actually crawl a little further forward with your arms to create a bit more length in your back on this side. Mm-hmm. If you're wanting to move into a pigeon shape, you can do that now. So rolling over onto your left hip, extending the right leg backwards. Maybe finding yourself a little lower to the ground with that space. Deciding what your left foot's going to do. Is it going to sit below your groin? Is it going to draw towards the right hip point? Are you going to pull it up in space? Okay. A couple more breaths and we're going to move from this shape. Once you've taken that second breath, take your exit route, either your down dog, child's pose, or seat. And again, if you're taking a seat, maybe make some micro movements this time. If you're in down dog, come and find a seat. If you're in child's pose, push yourself up to a seat. Okay. We're going to take a forward fold here. You can do this propless or you can go mad with the props. It's your call. So extend your legs out in front of you. I'm going to use my bolster because that's my favorite way to do this shape. Shameless bolster use. Extend your legs. If you know that you've got either quite strong hamstrings, this might be quite nice to do without a prop underneath you, because it might be quite nice to stretch it out. If you know that you've got very loose muscles and ligaments, if you're quite flexible, I would put a boundary there for you so that we can listen to our edge instead of just flopping into it. So if you're using props, you can take the bolster either underneath your knees or on top of your legs like this as something to support your belly. You can play around with it, see what feels better. And we're going to come into this shape in a more sort of vinyasa-esque style. Don't worry, we're not going to actually move much. What I mean by that is we're going to be active. We're going to flex our feet. So flex your feet so your toes are pointing upwards, and you should get a nice little bit of feedback along the back of the legs, definitely down the feet. Maybe the ankles are getting a good stretch too. And keep that flexion as you start to lean forward, and as you pivot around your hips here, you're going to start feeling some fire creep right up to your hamstrings. And once that fire gets a bit too much, just soften the feet. Maybe even move your heels backwards and accommodate a bit more space to come forward. And as I said, if you have props handy, you can load them up. If you've got blocks, you can use them below your head, maybe taking them onto a bolster first, place something under your chin. It's your call. Do what feels good to you, and don't worry if it looks weird. So anyone that has a bit more mobility in your hips, you might find that creating a barrier is actually quite effortful. It helps you it kind of taps into the muscles a little more, helps you realize what needs to be working to be in a shape like this. If you are mobile in your joints, our muscles can get a little weaker sometimes because we don't need them as much. So it's good to know about it. Every time you exhale, maybe inch yourself a little further forward.
Let's take any effort away from the shoulders, neck, head. Release your head, let your armpits get heavy as if they've got little anchors underneath them. And hopefully you'll notice a shift of the tension down to your lower back. Gonna stay here for another 6 or 7 breaths. If that frustration has started to eke into the shape, bring your breath back to this pendulum way of being. Long, slow, careful inhales and exhales of equal length with a little pause at the top and the bottom. Okay, let's start to slowly walk ourselves out. Come to lie all the way down on your back. If you've got a support for your knees here, just lie straight down. If you don't, then bend your knees. Let your shoulder blades draw together and let your hands rest wherever they go. Okay. If you have a bolster underneath your knees, you can just stay as you are. If you have got a bolster or a block or a few pillows or books nearby, grab one of them. And we're going to come into bridge just to counteract that big flexion in the spine. So whichever, I think a bolster feels so nice for bridge if you've got something like that. So a few pillows is a good alternative. Grab that. Take your feet to the ground. Nice big bend in the knees. Draw your heels towards your bum-ish, not too close. Then lift your hips and slide your props underneath your lower back. So right down at the bottom where your sacrum is, behind your bum. And we'll just start with our knees bent, because that was a really deep flexion, and this is a very deep extension of the spine. So just take it easy. Let your chin tuck to your chest attach, so we've got some length in the back of the spine. Try and let your shoulders stay really grounded here. Get as much of your shoulder blades on the ground as possible. And you can keep that bend in the knees if it feels good, or extend your legs. Get a really nice stretch down the front of the hips. If you want to feel a bit more expansive, you can extend your arms back behind you, or maybe grab opposite elbows. Okay. Let's take another breath. And to come out of the shape, we're going to hug our knees towards our chest. If that feels too much, you can just take your feet onto whatever prop you're using. And from here, roll over to one side and push yourself up to a wee seat. Nice. Okay, we're gonna grab that blanket that we've rolled into a sausage. If you don't have a blanket, it's absolutely fine. You don't need one necessarily. We're gonna come into our final shape for the class, and you might find that it's so dreamy that you want to stay in it for Shavasana. So if you're chilly, make sure you've got blankets and jumpers and things nearby. We'll take Supta Baddha Konasana, but we're going to use our blanket as a little support for our ankles and as a little support for the legs. Some might still need some support for your knees, so have your blocks or whatever you've got handy nearby for that too. I'll show you how to come into this. So once you're ready, take your big sausage blanket and take your feet to touch like this. And just figure out where you want your feet to be in relation to your groin. Remember, if you draw them closer, you get a deeper sensation in the hips. If you draw them further away, it's a lot softer. Decide what works. And then take your blanket and first of all, just cross it over the top of your ankles like this. Then lift your knees and sweep the blanket underneath so that it comes together like that. And it doesn't matter if your blanket's kind of messy on the other side. What you want, I'll show you from this direction, is that you want to have leg warmers basically for your ankles. And from here, we're going to lie down. Now, if you want to, you can do what we did the other night and you can come to lie down on your bolster. That feels pretty lovely, but it's a big back bend. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to lie down on my back and I'm going to use a couple of supports for my knees. Okay. So the blanket goes over the top of the ankles, so your ankles, feet are touching. Nice. And from here, come to lie all the way down, either with your bolster behind you or nothing behind you. And then if it's feeling like your blanket's got loose, it's totally worth tightening it up, because I think the tightness of it adds this kind of really nice element of security. If your hips are still feeling a little vulnerable in this shape, if it's too big a stretch on your groin, grab something for underneath your knees. It's not worth being uncomfortable in this shape because it's so lovely when it's right. Yeah, it looks like you've all got a pretty sweet setup. Okay. Let your arms rest down by your side with your palms upwards. If you want to make it expansive, you can send your arms overhead, but I think it's a lot softer if they're by your side. Sometimes really hippie shapes like this can bring a little tension into the body, into the jaw, shoulders, or the belly. So just check in on those points. Make sure everything's soft and loose. You feel like you're drawing your belly upwards and creating a little bridge in your spine. Let the back body get heavy. Let yourself sink into the mat. If you're wanting to move into a different shape for Shavasana, start doing that now. The opposite shape of this is constructive rest, where your feet are wide on your mat and your knees are knocking in. That's a really sweet complement to the shape if you feel like you need it. Soften the space between your eyebrows and relax your jaw. And enjoy some rest for the next wee while. If you'd like to stay where you are, please do. Otherwise, you can begin to deepen your breath. And maybe breathe a little energy back into your body. I'll let you stay lying down tonight so you can enjoy some stillness for a little longer. But thank you very much, as always, for your commitment, for listening to yourself, to your body, taking time to breathe. I'll see you all soon. Lots of love.